So I can check and make sure it's. Okay.
That's okay. 3.0 is different. Thank you. I'm really happy to be able to talk today, and a little nervous actually. Partly just the layout here is a little different than our teaching stations. You know, I can look at a screen. So yeah, the title of my talk is Teaching STEM Through Food and Farming, and when I substitute your topic for STEM there while I'm talking, think about somehow how these might relate to you, I hope. But I always say that you think vegetables are our main product, but they're a side product for us. We grow about 3 to 4 tons of vegetables a year, but our main yield is not vegetables, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So back when OU had these, the way of promotion was verb to verb kind of things, and so I like this way we phrased it. We learn to grow, but while we're doing that, we're growing to learn. Okay, so that's been my philosophy all along with this. And I have end of term evaluations where not assessments, where I ask students to give me feedback about what they would take with them from this class or these classes. And this is a statement from one of our students. I learned how to learn in this class, and I learned more science in this class than any of my lecture classes. And no offense to my colleagues, but we're not teaching rocket science and we're not teaching molecular biology. But I think the metacognition that comes with our style of learning is really what this student was talking about. But I get many, many comments like this. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about the journey that led us here. And Sarah kind of alluded to the very beginnings of this. I'm by training a biomedical scientist who worked on cardiovascular disease for the first half of my career. And then for reasons I won't go into, I hung up my lab coat and decided to take a sabbatical to retool. And that retooling was transformational for me without knowing where it was leading. I took a certificate course at Michigan State for a year in organic farming. They were just starting up this program. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with it, but once I was there, I realized it was completely transformational for me, partly because that was my first experience in active learning. I had no idea that you could teach things this way. And it was so, not only the experience of how to learn, but also what I was learning and what was important, I thought, especially coming from the health sciences area. And so when I came back to OU, I still was teaching biomedical classes, but I really yearned not to do it anymore. And so I happened to be attending an Earth Day program at the OC, where I came across 3 different groups of students who were talking among themselves about how they really like to have a garden on campus for various reasons. And one of them actually, one of the groups was from the School of Business. You know, it wasn't just biology and ecology students. And I'm like, hey, I'm listening, you know, let's see what we could do. And so we got together and a group of students proposed to OU that we have some sort of a garden, maybe right outside the Oakland Center or over by the dorms or something like that. And it took 2 years to get approved. We worked a proposal, and it was like, we liked our landscaping how it is. I don't know if we want to do this. And today we can do these things, but this was like really novel to have this kind of proposal from the ground up, and it was really exciting. And so that led to, we have a farm now, and here's me doing really exciting and rewarding things with students, but the goal is to talk about students today. So I don't know how many of you had heard of the Campus Bee Farm before, but many of you wouldn't have seen it because it isn't outside the OC and it isn't beside any dorms. It is like here we are, and here is the farm. Okay, and yeah, interestingly, and this is conversation that goes into our teaching, it is based on the agricultural heritage of Oakland University. We used to be a farm. And Matilda Dodge was quite a farmer, and she had the money to do it right, you know. And she had a lot of connections with MSU, and that's why we still have a few barns around here. And our location here, we have trouble with this pointer down here. Is the full former poultry area of the Meadowbrook farm, and they raised really high fancy chickens, and they had this cutting edge poultry operation for the day, 20s or 30s or whenever it was. And the cutting edge part, which is a conversation we have, chickens didn't have to go outside, and what a great idea that became. So. So this is how it started. In retrospect, I sort of think they put us out there because nothing was out there, and when it failed, nobody would notice. It was a struggle. We had a plot that turned out to have been the, I'm going to talk about that later. The plot had more problems than it was hard for the bottom line is a group of students who were probably going to graduate in a year, whatnot. I knew from my experience that it wasn't going to last very long because student turnover, student exams, this kind of thing. So I didn't have high expectations actually, but we wanted to get something started. It was a lot of work, but it was fun. But if anybody has been involved with the community garden, you know that it takes a lot to keep it going. Okay, even if it's a senior center where people aren't going anywhere, it's hard to keep things going. So we had a stroke of luck because the dean's office, Kathy, we're in the dean's office, identified this program, a grant from the Midwest Campus Compact Consortium, which had the interest in changing how we do our STEM teaching to make it more relevant to today's society. And they came up with the challenge to propose something where you would be teaching STEM topics through food. And I'm like, I can do that. I want to do that. And it really was designed around the idea that people were tossing around in all the disciplines at the time. It's like our students are coming out of college and they don't know what to do in the workplace because they're not team workers. We don't have any use for multiple choice takers, I'm sorry to say, you know. So so this has been our marching orders ever since. And the funding for it really helped us start the farm and made it into an academic process. So I found many ways to teach STEM through food. These are classes that I developed and still teach. I'm only today going to talk about the first two organic farming classes because they're the most non-traditional classes. Okay, so I will say that getting permission to develop these classes was an interesting challenge because back then we didn't have active learning in biology, and I was told, we're a biology department, this isn't MSU, we're not raising farmers, you know, we don't want to do that. And I didn't say, but would have liked to have said to this biomedically oriented department, do you know that a good amount of today's environmental problems and a huge amount of today's health problems can be traced back to food and agriculture? I didn't say it then, but my students know this. And what I did say is, oh, there's money involved. Got it. So the top four are really field classes. I don't have time to talk about all of them. And then the other classes are more lecture, but we use the farm a lot in the classes. So this is a typical day, typical days in the organic farming classes that occurs in the summer. And you can just see that, we start with bare ground. And then by the end of the term, we have plants all over the place, too much to eat. We're doing things with them, but we're solving problems along the way. And I'm going to just allude to sort of some of those things we do. Then we also, the 3361 class, which is a applied organic farming, it's a lab or field experience. There's an amazing amount of things that you can do with food farming in the fall. And so it's different than what we do in the summer, okay? And then you can also take it in the winter where we also do different things. And so students can actually take these three things, the same course number 3 times if they want to. So besides those classes that I mentioned, I've also taught, used the farm in my scientific food and farming in my scientific inquiry capstone class. And I taught in the Malls and Bowels program, the science aspect of things where I took the theme of feeding the world to use introducing STEM through there. So there's so many ways, I can't count them, that you can use food and farming. And then also many disciplines have used the farm as a learning resource, and I want you to be able to think about that. In many disciplines, I've had some really exciting things with the arts and writing classes this past year. We've worked with engineering classes, solar energy projects. Haven't worked with anybody in MTD yet, but business, we have all kinds of interesting things. And those are topics for 10 more talks. But really, we're always focused on this. It's high impact learning for lifelong skills. We're not teaching people to be a farmer, okay? But the skills that we're thinking skills and problem solving skills is what we're after. And students can identify with real world problems of health, the environment, and society. So even though it's a biology class, we get into societal issues quite a lot. So here's just one example of something that we might be doing in our classes, okay? So we use plant taxonomy, it's Bio 1300, we actually use our plant taxonomy. And in this scene, this is from our hoop house, we have 5 different plant families side by side. And what happens when we do this is our pest and disease problems tend to fall along plant family ties, common plant families, okay? So say a plant family that you would recognize might be tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, and potatoes are all in the same family. So we try to avoid the pests that come with that family. And by these interplantings, it sort of mixes up the pests, so that helps a lot. And then also in the field, we would rotate places where we would grow these crops to avoid the carryover of the larvae from these different plants. So there are lots of different strategies that we use in our problem solving. So we have a lot of biodiversity, not just the taxonomic families, but we grow cut flowers, but we also have a lot of, even our weeds provide biodiversity. And there's kind of an interesting, couple interesting things I want to say about this slide. One is that, okay, this guy is a tomato hornworm, really pretty. It's about as big as your thumb. And it can take down a tomato plant in a day, 1 or 2 of them. But with our biodiversity, we have other beneficial insects, such as these parasitic wasps that get into these guys, and then they lay their eggs, and then they explode. So, so we've never actually had an epidemic of tomato hornworms that took out our entire crop. So another example is cabbage looper, which is this cute little inchwormy thing. And we just know we have them when we see holes in our crop. And there's another kind of parasitic uh, insect that takes care of this one. But while I'm talking about that, I want to mention about these holes. So we always tell our students, like, we can't sell crops with lots of holes, but we tell our students to tell their customers at the farm stand that there might be some holes, especially in our kale or cabbagey type of things. And you know, you don't see this in the store, but you're getting a special treat because they're more nutritious, because plants start producing defensive compounds that happen to be really healthy compounds, great antioxidants. And so we're giving you healthier crops, okay? And we also say that if the insects don't eat them, so no holes, maybe you don't want to either. So, then we have these other really fun insects like the praying mantis has little places they hang out. So we asked the students, well, what do you think they're eating there? Why do they like to hang out in the beans? Or these wolf spiders that hang out in our tomatoes, what are they looking for? They're helping us out in these different ways. So that's the kind of problem solving that's about all the biology I'm going to talk about. But when I survey the students coming in for what are their learning styles that they prefer, they like lectures, like teamwork, this kind of thing, and what their learning styles are. And across the board, I would say at least 90% will say they like hands-on learning. So they get it in my class. So I won't explain what all these hands are doing except for this one on this one over here. We're saving seeds from heirloom tomatoes, so we are developing lines of OU special heirlooms. So this is the farm, okay? Those 3 buildings you see are the former chicken coops, of which we only have a part of this one. And so how we've operated is that each class coming in until we ran out of space would raise, this is our first garden, and then each class develops a new field for us. And then we had a hoop house that we grew, planted over one. Now we've run out of space, but I want to say a little bit about our first garden because that's another lesson that we give when people are touring. First of all, OU plowed it up for us. That was nice of them. It was lawn. And I, coming from training, said, wow, this is really sandy. This is going to be a challenge. Sand, I'm used to clay. So also, I noticed right away that there's a whole line of conifers here, very tall conifers, and this is south. Okay. And big tree here to the west. So there's a lot of shade. It's not too good. So that's something we actually have to think about when we decide what we're going to grow in this garden. But anyway, back to the sand, the soil, as it turned out, these structures, after they were chicken coops, had been the site of a Lowry daycare center before they got their digs over here for about 10 years or something. And somebody had scraped off all the topsoil and put it into a berm over on the other side that we weren't using and brought in some playground sand. And so that's what we were working with our first garden. So we brought in 2 semis of compost to deal with that. So another thing that's interesting, all the aspects of the farm that are needed that year, the students are doing in classes. We have crew members too, but students participate in this. And one of the interesting things we did that also was kind of a groundbreaking breakthrough in what students are allowed to do and how the campus can do this. When we built our first hoop house, students were involved in it all the way. But in order to have that happen, we had meetings after meetings and memos after memos. It's like risk management. Oh, whatever, terrible, terrible. They might get hurt, yeah, with a hammer or a screwdriver. I don't know. the skilled trades were like, you're putting us out of our jobs. This has to be a union job. It was really controversial, actually, and it took a lot to get this happening. I mean, when we see gardens on campus now, but this was like a groundbreaking of what students could be allowed to do. And, you know, when I finally said, let's all sit in the room and talk about this, and showed what they were going to do, they weren't going to be up on high ladders, somebody else was going to be doing that. But I said, this is a learning, part of our learning, because one of our goals, besides the STEM aspect of things, is to train students so that if they should want to, they could go out after this course and organize and manage a community garden. We're not expecting them to be farmers, but they could be very useful in the community to manage a garden. And this is one of the things community gardens like to do, and they like to have volunteers doing it. So they have really enjoyed that. And then this last couple of years ago, we got money to put in an extension, so more students had a chance to do this building. So we're really, the building is part of the process of learning. Being part of something bigger, I think the students really appreciate that. So, and they're gonna have a chance to do this again because we're not just blew out. So I'm gonna speed this up. So we have the campus culture, the farm stand has become part of the campus culture, and there's a lot of work and a lot of science and a lot of planning that goes into getting there. And at the campus farm stand, students take pride in explaining what they've grown, how to use it, and develop things like walking salads for students that don't have a way to cook their food. Where I do want to go is that we get beyond our learning objectives of explain this, diagram that, whatever, we do those things. But the unity of the community that comes about as a result of this style of learning is really important. And people become friends on Facebook I'm friends with all of them on Facebook and keep in touch. It's a classroom without walls, and what students appreciate is that it's not an institutional setting. They're besides being outdoors, they're not in a classroom. And importantly, this is what I do want to leave you with is besides the STEM education part of it, it's a lot of fun and a lot of holistic aspects to it. And besides the fresh air. So this is what I call a stress-free zone. Students can relax and get to know each other well. And the grizz down there that's weeding, even things like weeding can be a Zen experience. You're just there kind of losing yourself down in the weeds, basically. So that and the development of a community, this is like place-based learning. The community, the inclusiveness and a welcoming environment that students have. So I'll just close with a couple of quotes from students that I got from feedback at the end of my courses. The farm provided so many valuable friendships for me, and really the only place on campus I felt comfortable enough to be myself. There are so many opportunities for both students and the farm to grow and flourish. So not just growing vegetables, we're growing people. The student organic farm and the time I spent there was easily the best and most memorable part of my undergraduate experience. And so I like that comes a full circle with some of the things we're already talking about. The farm can be so much more than just STEM education. It can be a resource for lots of things that our students are confronting today at the farm.